Berenna, we shall begin now. You
Okay.
can start the introductory address. Preetika, pin Berenna to your screen. Thank you.
Good evening, participants from India, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. And good morning to participants from USA, France, Slovenia, Rome, and Canada. This is Berenice, Head Department of Sociology and Industrial Relations, St. Joseph's College, Bengaluru. On behalf of our principal, staff, and students, I extend to you a very warm welcome to this webinar, Positive Impact of COVID-19 Psychosocial Spiritual Dimension. We have 626 registered participants. I thank all of you for this overwhelming response. I'm sure that each one of you will take back something positive from this webinar. Welcome once again, and thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maria from Department of Sociology, St. Joseph's College, Autonomous, Bangalore. This evening, I have the pleasure of introducing three amazing speakers, Dr. R. Rajesh, Sociology, Bangalore University, Bengaluru. Dr. R. Rajesh is a Registrar Evaluation at Karnataka State, Dr. Gangubai Hanagal Music and Performing Arts University, Mysore. And Dr. Rajesh was a member, Executive Council, Pondicherry University, Puducherry from 2015 to 2018, nominated by His Excellency, the President of India, in his capacity as visitor. This evening, Dr. Rajesh is going to share his ideas on social dimensions of COVID-19. Over to Rajesh, sir.
Good evening, everybody. And for some parts of the world, good afternoon, and then probably good morning to other parts of the world, wherever you are. And this is exactly what, again, we are trying to see, that any event or a situation will not have the same impact as it would have on everybody. Since the globe is round, the situations will also be round. Then the day and night, or evening and morning, whatever may be the scenario, everything changes. The whole world has witnessed this particular COVID-19 from a different perspective altogether. It has witnessed it more as a fear. It has witnessed it as more of some sort of an anxiety. A situation where it cannot be controlled, a situation where it cannot be imagined, kind of a thing. That was the scenario where everybody went through for the last 2.5 months. Let's try to see the whole scenario from a different perspective altogether. That there is some sort of a positive dimension to every event. No event is free from any implications or complications. Life is full of multiple facets. Every action has a reaction, or probably a list of actions leads to list of reactions, multiple reactions rather. So as a result, any event also would have some sort of implications. Good implications, intended, unintended, manifested, and various other dimensions of it. The present scenario also could be seen as a resultant of some sort of a cumulative actions, of not of one individual, but a cumulative actions of multiple individuals, multiple institutions, and multiple regions and probably countries. Now, nothing is some sort of an effect of one particular scenario. It has multiple cumulative and reason-based actions and also some sort of cumulative reactions. So these situations invariably have some sort of logical consequences also. If you are looking at it from this particular point of view, there is a history behind it, and also there would be some sort of a future. The history behind this could be seen as some sort of what made this particular scenario to happen, how it happened, why it happened, and what are the factors that could be responsible, and various types of analysis is also going on, blaming a group of people, scientists, labs, countries, and various other dimensions. Now, but any action of one particular group has an impact on many others. Now, that's what we have witnessed it now. Now, it could also be seen from the butterfly effect also, where the butterflies somewhere else will start flicking their wings, and then there is some sort of a cyclone somewhere else. Now, it could be initially look like some sort of a silly theory, but again, it has some sort of implications at a very larger level. The virus that we have been facing is so invisible to our naked eyes or probably to our five sensory perspectives, but it has an implication at a much larger level. Now, let's try to see in terms of this is some sort of a scenario which has given us an opportunity to see how things can be changed. I would rather put it as some sort of an opportunity to change rather than looking in terms of an anxiety or a fear perspective. There need not be any fear. There need not be, anybody need not go in terms of how one has to be very, very anxious about in terms of its consequences. Everything will have a consequences, but also there could be positive consequences. If you try to see in terms of sociological perspective, the whole family or probably marriage or even kinship and our bondage has been built over a period of time in such a way that we cannot live alone. We need to be together. But over a period of time, what has happened here is we are forced to live alone in such a way that the mad race of our career, the mad race of numbers, the mad race of making money, the mad race of making huge amount of wealth, and materialistic perspective has made us to go beyond our own limits. We have moved our families, we have moved away from our kids and kins, and we have left our family members, married couples and various other people. So we have moved away, leaving the more important core aspect of our life, which binds us together. So I would rather put it in terms of how these institutions have affected. If you try to understand the sociology as a discipline, it emerged in a context of industrialization, where the whole social structure got changed, and then the whole society needs to be understood. That is how the whole initial thinkers of society started thinking that there is a need to understand. But we don't need to understand an event after that is taken place. We don't need to do some sort of postmortem research kind of a thing. Every event will have some sort of an impact, and then that impact needs to be understood so that we can readjust to those kind of new scenarios. So if we try to see from the institutional point of view, every family is affected. Has it affected negatively? Let's try to see the positive side of it. All the family members were together in the last 3 months. Of course, some people who are far off, they could not be brought together, but the technology definitely helped us to come together in terms of having chats or probably conversations, or maybe even in terms of video, whatever it may be. At least it has brought us together. We have moved to a situation where this family, which was never felt that important except some sort of an hotel kind of an atmosphere where you go work for 8 plus 8, 16 hours in a day, and only you come for 8 hours, within that 6 hours of sleeping and again doing your routines at home. So it was some sort of an arrangement for many members that you come only to sleep at home and then again get back to the work. So 2/3 of our life in everyday life was outside rather than inside, in the sense the home. So family members hardly had any time to interact. So now this is an opportunity where people had a lot of interaction with the family members. Now this is a positive side of it. Where people, I have gathered information where people were allowed to be separated from the legal perspective, where they wanted to get separated. There is some sort of a gestation period where you need to stay with the spouses for 1 year and then again come back, so that there is a need to break or not kind of situation. Now those kind of couples have already come back and said that this was much more needed kind of a situation. 24 hours if you are with the family, obviously the vibrations and then again some sort of unsettled issues would definitely get set. So this scenario could be seen in terms of a new equilibrium is created rather than a disequilibrium, which was earlier, I would put it as, we were in a abnormal scenario where we were working outside so much, rather than what it meant for the family members and again your own health and other things. That was taking away the major toll. And now with this 24 hours of time for the last 2.5 months has brought us together. The wavelengths have met. It's not possible for everybody. With the moment you are at home, you cannot keep on watching 24 hours. You cannot watching a movie or probably on various other channels and other things. It's not possible. So you need to interact and you need to build your consensus on various other issues. The one thing that again made this particular scenario more stronger is women have proved themselves to be the most strongest and inevitable, invincible entity in our life. And it is the women who have made still in every crisis, made all situations more stronger. There are some sort of videos moving around here and there. People who are working outside got the holiday because of the lockdown. Kids got the holiday because they could not go to schools. Women, they did not have any positive impact in that sense. In fact, they controlled the whole time. They were more happy. At the time, there was some sort of physical assertions and various other things, could be in terms of like more of work. But again, that made them more happy because the family members were together to eat whatever they cooked. The smile was visible. The vibrations and the wavelengths were meeting in that sense. So family was the first thing which brought us together. Women who were really the backbone of this particular family were given their place, and again, they were understood how everyday struggle was going on. Men would not even know probably in terms of what kind of a struggle women would go through, and probably a working woman who had to do the double shift in that sense now had some sort of a break. But again, women really made the whole family to bring together and again do whatever things that could be made possible. Another thing, we have slowed down from a mad rush. There is some sort of a saying that you need to have some sort of correction. If you look at it from the stock market perspective, when there is some sort of a crash in the market, they don't call it as in terms of the market crash, they call it as a correction. Correction is required because unnecessarily things would have shot up. It could be the price, or it could be emotions, or it could be anything. It needs to settle down at some point of time. So we were moving in such a mad rush that probably it's not just 8 plus 8, 16 hours of life, probably 24 hours we were working for the career and making money and various other things. Leaving alone what exactly this body needs, or probably what this mind needs, or probably what our soul needs, which was never understood in a different perspective altogether. So we got a break. If you look at it from the different religious perspective, every religion has some sort of a break mechanism that you need to fast, probably a month or once in a week or probably once in a month, Ekadashi, you name it, either Ramzan or various other issues. So this body needs a break. This brain needs a break. That's where they sleep. We need to rest. And that's how the whole opportunity to rest was much needed. And then again, that we got an opportunity. So once we got a rest, so we need to restart now. So when we restart, obviously it will not start from the whole background perspective. It will restart from a new perspective. So that's the positive side of it, that people who did not get the opportunity to understand scenario, they have started looking at it from a different angle altogether. In difficult times only we get to know in terms of what is our potential. Only when we are under pressure only we come to know in terms of what exactly we can do as an alternative to the existing perspective or probably scenario or probably the trend that we are following in, or maybe in terms of whatever we have been doing so far. So a break was needed and a restart would definitely happen. So a break was much more needed in terms of so much of routine, so much of mad rush and so much of going behind various other things. It made us realize that we need to take a break. So now probably we'll realize that vacations are much more needed, not just for the body, but for again for rejuvenating ourselves in different ways. Staying at home was much more required rather than moving outside. That gave us a lot of energy. So outside world is good or bad, doesn't matter, but again the family inside is much more stronger. Now having discussed in terms of the positive dimensions of various other dimensions, aspects of life, has it benefited anybody? Probably there is some sort of a gap in our routine. I would rather put it as some sort of amnesia kind of a thing. There is some sort of a memory loss probably. So like that there is some sort of an economic loss. But let's see the positive side of it. We started looking in terms of, do we need so many dresses that we have? Do we need so many cars that we have, which never moved for the last 1.5 months? We never wore those kind of dresses which we had in our wardrobes, which we, even if we put it in a cycle, it never used to come once in a year or probably in once in 2 years. So our wardrobes are full of dresses, unnecessary materials and other things. So we started looking in terms of what is our essential requirement. One is to survive. The survivability becomes a very important issue in this particular scenario. Not only this, but again, different scenarios will definitely come. Probably the dependency scenario changes prior to 20 and after 60. You become more presumably independent. But rather I put it as, the more you're dependent, you start looking for independence. But again, more than you have to do every work in that sense. But after 60, again, you start thinking in terms of how it becomes not possible to be self-dependent, but you need to be dependent on others. So the dependency scenario of the family as a structure brings us together. So it is not that I cannot do anything, I can do, but again, my isolation would create more problem than somebody's scenario. So in that sense, we have much more meaningful dimensions. The primary institutions have taken the primary role, and again, they got the fundamental strength of it. That's it. But again, you look it from the perspective of virus, which has created some sort of an anxiety or maybe some sort of uncontrolled fear that had. But again, if you look at it from the clock side, there is a fear, it started, and then we moved to some sort of an anxiety, and then we try to see in terms of there is a positive dimension to it. Everybody is happy and people are happy at home. Everything got settled down now. We started moving out from understanding these are the essentials. In the name of luxuries, we have amassed more than what we require. So in that scenario, this whole process of basic institutions like family, marriage, kinship have taken a major important role. The secondary probably in that sense would be education, which can still be family, and again the formal institutions outside. Economy, which can still be sustaining and outside. There's only a gap or probably some sort of a missing memory loss or probably economic loss or a period where it needs to be readjusted at some level. So if you try to see in terms of religion, it has not been affected. So if you look at from various other dimensions of all other institutions, legal dimensions, various other institutions, nothing is affected. But what was affected was our essential life that was affected. So life needs to be seen from a different angle altogether and then try to see how it needs to be understood. We were eased out from everything. The bondedness, which was absent, which brought us together. The routine that got out. The real essence of life was made possible, and we started realizing in terms of how the children become important. Elderly people become important. Family members become important. Now, this was somewhere missing in the matters of materialism, urbanization, or probably in terms of career growth, numbers, amassing of wealth, and various other dimensions. So we have moved from basic understanding from luxury to some sort of basic or necessity-based kind of thing. But this brings us that lots of important issues have been understood. The loved ones, who are the real loved ones, those who stay together with you right from your birth till death, are the real loved ones. Not those who come in terms of transition and then they go, not the real loved ones. Of course, in a professional scenario and various other things, they come and go. It's in a transition. But again, this, your primary, this becomes very important. So this gives us again a caution to get back to our roots. When we try to see in terms of how do we get back to our roots, not by looking in terms of the roots or not in terms of only the home or the house where we have built it. What we need to really understand is not to go and eat what is not yours in the sense. You need to eat what is grown around you, because you're breathing the air that is around you. You're drinking the water that is around you available, and you need to eat the food which is grown around you. Now that makes you more stronger than looking for things which are just outside. But that becomes more expensive at the same time. It will not be adjustable to your own body in the sense. So lots of things we need to understand is in terms of how urban structure got disturbed, but the village structure never got disturbed. They were the strongest people. In fact, they sustained without any disturbance. They sustained themselves. They had the mechanism of controlling themselves. They had the mechanism of living together. They still had the mechanism of enjoyment. They had the mechanism of everything. Everything continued the rural life. Now, the real life in the rural area becomes much more easier because they still continue to do whereas the basics are not disturbed. In our scenario, in the urban scenario, things get upside down because the dependency is more on the formal sector, which distributions, supply chain, various things are involved, whereas there, nothing is required. So, looking at from a different angle altogether, so we started seeing from whether it's a rural area or an urban area, the family, the quality time that we spend is much more important with the family rather than anywhere else. So that gives a different dimension altogether, how we try to analyze and visualize things. So we need to strengthen our roots in that sense. But if we try to see in terms of how this has given a different opportunity altogether is, it has given us some sort of a strength for new challenges. New challenges from a perspective of it altered and again settles the odds. In the equilibrium scenario, it has settled many odds. It could be disturbances, it could be disequilibriums, or it could be vibrations, or it could be some sort of different mental status that people had in terms of understanding others' perspectives. So it has given some sort of an opportunity where we could correct ourselves, we could rethink, need to build from a different scenario altogether. So moving from the basic family structure, can we not see the positive side of how this disturbance has created opportunity? Indian economy. Now, every country outside India is now looking for an alternative for the already existing dominant production system. With the kind of population that we have, it's in a positive scenario that we can still look at in terms of how this population can be given more jobs. Jobs which are not available, no, they were available. They were taken away by some other country in the name of cheap labor, or probably the production process was much more easier, or the raw material was somewhere else. And what is the other thing? Given that scenario, we have a better opportunity to start producing more, one, two, for ourselves, second, probably for the group. So it's a positive side in terms of how there is a larger opportunity for us, and the positive side of it, all these things could be there. And whenever there is a challenge, both from within and outside, when something goes inside our body, which is so minute that we can't even visualize things, that can disturb us, and then outside world also gets disturbed in the same manner. In that process, obviously, we need to understand that this is a positive dimension, not a negative dimension. If you try to see in terms of the number of deaths that are happening, the various other types of deaths because of suicides or probably road accidents and various things, the number would not have crossed anything, or even the corona has not impacted so many deaths. But it has created an awareness that anything can shake us. Not the big ones, but the minutest one can shake us. Now, but this kind of cultural attitude was there even within us. We need to go back to our roots in the sense that why we were cleaning every time when we go outside and come back, that culture has to come back. So we are not practicing something new in the new COVID-19. We were practicing what we were doing earlier. So we need to revisit our own practices. We need to revisit our own cultures. We need to revisit our own family practices. The medicines were there very much in our own family, which are not patented. The local made medicines, the grandma's recipe and various other things, which are now absent. Only we need to Google around and then try to see. Now, you don't have to Google around because everything is available in your own kitchen for various types of medicines. So your own roots have lots of answers to many challenges. Your own families and your own ancestors have given, because we have not come through this particular stage in one day or one decade or maybe 1 century. Thousands and millions of years have passed. We don't have the document to say that how long we have been existing as human beings. But then we have evolved over a period of time. We continue to evolve. The challenges in the future also would definitely come, and again, it poses different challenges in a different scenario. But every challenge, some sort of an answer would always have been there, because people have faced all these things, because this is a cycle where it is coming again and again in a different form, but not in the same name, probably in the same perspective. So we need to understand that the challenges are completely gone. The challenges are yet to be faced in a different scenario altogether. So there is an opportunity for an economy, there is an opportunity for the jobs, there is an opportunity for the whole government to look at from a different perspective altogether. And there are better possibilities for investors now. You don't need to invest outside, you still have to invest here. Whatever money, that's black or white or it may be, you invest here, you can still make a lot of money. There's a positive side that you need not have to go outside to make name, you can still make name here. Charity, you don't have to go outside, you can still do charity here. So there's a lot of better opportunities because these things have given us a better perspective to understand. From a perspective of looking at from the reshaping, we have to think beyond our own boundaries now. There's an opportunity where every time it is given some sort of a possibility that we look for alternatives. A blockage initially is seen some sort of an obstacle, but if the energy is there, obviously it vents out in different directions. So this is an opportunity for most of us that we need to start looking for an alternative. If the job is troubling, look for alternative. If the situation like this is threatening us, then look for alternative. So we need to readjust and again relook for how do we adjust ourselves, and again just like the molecules in any physical or probably chemical compositions. So we are just like molecules in the society. We need to rearrange ourselves so that it gives us a different space altogether. So we had to have an understanding that our aura had an impact. So there was some sort of an interconnection because of the density and also population that the auras were getting interconnected. So we need for our own privacy or probably safety or in terms of health perspective or various dimensions, we need our own space. Probably this gives us more space, not just physical space, but also some sort of a mental space. Looking at it from the psychological point of view, you can see that an individual gets affected. That's where we understand psychological. But again, sociological understanding comes in when that individual affects others or others are affecting that particular individual. So groups become important. It's not the individual that's important. Only when you're together, you're strong. And that gives us some sort of lots of opportunity. The positive side is we started seeing the positive side of our own family members in this particular scenario. So we need to understand that is it a global crisis or it's a global crisis, local crisis. Globally, there was definitely a challenge. Locally also, there was some sort of a challenge. But the challenges have to be understood from a different perspective. From an economy perspective, global challenges are different. From a local perspective, your survivability becomes an importance. Now, this is how, not looking from a theoretical perspective, which is generated and again propagated elsewhere, you need to theorize from your own angle, from your own local situation perspective. So if we try to understand that how this particular opportunity has given us some sort of understanding how alternatives are available for us, we don't have to look somewhere else. So we need to understand that this particular aspect has given us better opportunity. So have we got a better opportunity to relook into our own life, or is it somebody has to tell us? The only thing is we have been so much dependent that if there is some sort of a question for us, we have started looking outside. Initially, we were asking our elderly people, and now we have started asking Google uncle. Why are we asking Google uncle for everything? Why are we not using this? Just like to calculate 2 plus 2, we are using the calculator. To check out the spelling, we are just Googling around now. So there is so much of dependency on the external knowledge system. There is so much of dependency on the external technology. There is so much of dependency on the external various other aspects of life rather than looking in your own self. As the space is outside so huge, the space inside is also that so much huge. Look at the memory capacity that the God has created to us. It is so small, but it can still capture and again, you calculate it in any form. There is a strength with us. It has the millions into millions of supercomputers capacity. It can think and it can work and it can do. Why don't you believe in your own brain? Why don't you believe in your own local system? Why don't you believe in your own local knowledge system? So this is an opportunity to again encash the local knowledge that was available, which has been absent and again it's not been encashed. gave a life for the people. It could be tribal knowledge system, it could be village knowledge system, or it could be family knowledge system. Every family, every village, the moment you go to the next village, there is some sort of a minor changes. The local people, the side-by-side people would know, but for an outsider, everything looks like the same. Like for some other species, all the human beings look like same. Like the cockroaches, all the cockroaches for us look like the same. But every village, every community knowledge system. It could be language, it could be culture, it could be food, it could be survival. Now, every village has one way, the same scenario. It's not the administration has gone to different village and again every village was managed. Every village has managed itself. It is urban setup. Administration has brought in the police, barricades, and other things. The local people in the villages have created their own barricades. They have not allowed anybody to go outside, and they have not allowed anybody from outside to come inside. So they have faced all these kind of things. They need to understand how local knowledge is not documented. We don't have to look for some other American or European or some other country. Even if you're an American, or you don't have to look for some other knowledge system in the Google and various other dimensions. Look into your own local cultural perspectives, your own roots. There are answers to many of those issues, which we have undermined or probably we never been told that there is a knowledge system in our own system. Believe in your own parents, believe in your own ancestors, believe in your own village, believe in your own roots. There is huge amount of knowledge that is existing. Only thing is we need to encash it. We need to document it. We need to tell it to people. These are the alternative ways of understanding scenarios. So it is some sort of an opportunity from a positive side that we need to look not from outside, from inside. So this inside, I'm not talking from the perspective of cosmic dimensions or maybe some sort of spiritual dimensions of it, but again, from the space point of view. If you look at it from the time perspective also, if you just go back to the past, people where they have faced all these kind of situations, they also have answers to these things, except that they were documented. And we need to see there are many local heroes, small heroes, they have not come to the limelight, they have not been shown on televisions, they have not been printed with photographs on the newspapers, but clap for them. A family, in every family, there has been a hero or a hero. Put it as anybody who has contributed for the positive side of the protection could be an hero. Or in every village or every small community, there are people who have seen what they could not do, they have contributed from the little whatever they had. Now, this is the positive side of it. The help has not come from outside, the help has come from within the small group itself. Document it, nurture it, and develop it, and then try to see in terms of how we need to redistribute ourselves in terms of resources, in terms of time, or in terms of various other things what suddenly becomes absent. So document that. Once we document that and then tell people that there's no single story all over the world, there are multiple stories all over. There is no single hero as it happens in case of movies. There are multiple heroes around us. Now, why do we need to celebrate single hero? Why can't we celebrate multiple heroes? Our local heroes has given us most, which the global heroes have not been. Ideas could emerge anywhere. You can give an idea. So this is an opportunity for to see in terms of how you can become a hero by contributing to the larger system, give it to the nation or give it to the administration, hero ideas. Because everybody would not think the way you think. You think differently and you are important. When you become important, obviously, it is your contribution, not anybody else's contribution. But it is the contribution of a situation. This is a situation, or this is a context, or this is a scenario which allows you to think in this direction. Everybody would not think from their own perspective. Everybody starts thinking from the trained perspective. It could be from the discipline that where you're trained, but that's only for the training purpose. But you need to move out, go beyond the discipline that has trained you. Like I'm a sociologist, and again, I have been only trying to see from the sociological perspective. No, I need to go beyond sociology because sociology is only a basic training. But I start thinking in terms of how physics works, how chemistry works, how psychology works, how biology works, how probably economy works, how politics works. So you need to be a multidisciplinary or probably multifaceted thought process is much more required. And that helps us to rebuild the whole economy, whole family, or to face any challenge that is being given to us in a scenario. In your 20s to 40s or probably 60s, in your working, the mind starts reflecting because it starts going to some sort of regression analysis. What have I done and what is the consequence I'm facing it now? So don't allow your mind to regret for the actions that you have. If you want to attempt it. And if there is a failure, nothing of it. You have the confidence of saying that I attempted and I could not succeed. Fine. That's the end of it. Don't have attempting it. But again, at least you have the confidence of saying that I attempted and I got it. Or I did not get it. So the consciousness becomes very important because the soul starts suffering from inside for the actions that you have done in the past. And that's where after 60, your body is not immune. It starts telling the body to work in a different direction. So mind is so strong that it has to be balanced in every sense. Your actions has to be seen from a different angle. So then connecting with the cosmic world and various other issues, which I'll not be talking today. But I am only trying to see one as an individual, trying to look at from the past and to the present, your own future in different perspective altogether. And you don't need luxuries, you need basics. Because after 60 years also, you can't drive, you can't eat what you have eaten in the 20s, and you can't wear the dresses that you have tried or probably could not try in the 20s and 30s. After 60s, obviously everything becomes very so immaterial because it doesn't wear it, you can't enjoy it and other things. If you have some sort of a detachment in that sense, that's a positive dimension that this particular scenario has given to us is it possible to live like this? And that's the reality of life. It could be some sort of a celibacy, or it could be living without any attachments. If that particular training has been injected in this particular 2.5 months time, and that is the greatest training that we had got, not by any formal training or school or education system or university or anything else, nature has trained us how to live without all those luxuries, but still you have it, but you can't use it. We had luxury cars parked in our parking lots, but we can't even move it. Now look at the scenario and try to see in terms of, then you need to slow down. One is a greater positive side of it is, you have an energy to go faster. There is somebody who cannot go faster. So obviously you go faster, obviously this person who is not that energized will stop working. If you slow down, obviously he will move. So that you can re-energize your energy to some other direction where there is nobody working at all. So don't go in a race where you already won. Don't beat the same old records because just for the sake of beating that record, don't have to beat. So that you are giving an opportunity for somebody else who has never got into the race, leave alone winning the race. So there are several ways of looking at this positive dimension. One could be celibacy, or probably could be to see in terms of how you can detach yourself from all those things, which you will definitely have to face after 60 or 70 years of time, your own age. Now there are various dimensions where we can relook at in terms of how do we redistribute ourselves. It could be resources, or it could be time, or it could be in terms of safety. So we need to redistribute our own time that we have given to our family, time that we have given to our own self. So there are many answers that we need to address, which has not been, probably, it was not given to us, and not given to us, a room was not given to us, or probably no training was made in that sense. That's where we need to meditate. So we need to have some sort of a speed, have got a better training. And without going to the gymnasium with big equipments, if you have a lot of exercises with the same body without any weights or something else, a better smile on your face, and the smile definitely gives you better soothing on your own soul. As a matter of fact, these kind of positive dimensions, I'm not talking from any theological point of view, nor any spiritual point of view, or not from any various other dimensions of life, but the realities of life are these things. So I'll stop here so that the next speaker would.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Been other professors, scholars, participants, and friends. Very good evening and greetings to all of you from Holy Cross College, Agartala, Tripura. With the cherished memory portals of my alma mater, the inexhaustible for the believers. So it was the dignity and holiness required. During this scenario, all these were intensely accentuated. Thus, the faith and practices kept alive. And another professor, Dr. Pankaj Chakravarti, Associate Professor of Holy Cross College, shared his perspective on the impact of coronavirus on religion, on the perspective of a Hindu tradition. He says we are asked to maintain physical distance, but not distancing from faith, worship, prayers, and charitable activities. Every home has a definite place of worship already in use. Dharma, karma, and nishkama karma were in their best. It is perceived as the most visible effect of the cherished religious upbringing. He perceives the teachings of Hindu Dharma summarized as be morally perfect, experience truth, and be free and available to do all the good. In Christianity, we see the corporal works of mercy from Gospel of Matthew 25, chapter 25, verses 31 to 46. It says, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, comfort the imprisoned, visit the sick, bury the dead. Finally, love of God and love of neighbor are mutually inexhaustible. And we could see all these values in its best during the last couple of months in India and rest of the world. And I could bring forth perceived other impacts. Probably in the one of the slides, the growth or the maturity stage. I've seen a couple of them. There could be a couple of repetition, but excuse me. The perceived impacts, love of God and love of neighbor blended well. Everyone who is in need is understood and accepted as a neighbor. Culture of cult developed to a culture of concern significantly. Inclusive outlook and shift responses and actions to attend the needy was in place. People gladly placed themselves from a path to a pragmatic zone. Isolation led to self-evaluation of lifestyles with a sense of divine. Of God as omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient apparently strengthened. Technological integration at micro level nurtured the communion and consistent communication. Understanding of each family or individual as a micro place of worship, either understood a church, temple, or mosque, was very effective. Common ritual-based worship, virtue-based accomplishments were effected. Custom of offering to deity or God changed to a culture of sharing with. The sparks of greater cordiality, respect, and understanding in the families were growing. Preaching with the word of rest to reaching out with the food for life, very especially who were in great need. There was a paradigm skepticism to susceptibility, and people were becoming more conscious of their sins, immoral life, and even leading to fear of judgments. There was a great awareness that faith and spirituality are not restricted by structures or rituals, but they are harmonizing. Over-dependence on rites and rituals has been eased, and personal space for spirituality has been expanded. Fellow feelings and humanity seems to have overtaken dry devotion in every religion. Man will have to redefine his existence in God's scheme, inclusive of even the smallest in nature. The coercive force of institutionalized hierarchy has lightened, and there is greater role within families in bonding in faith. COVID-19 strengthened the faith in the divine, deepened communion among the multitudes, and revamped the social and spiritual commitment and bonding. During this COVID-19 and lockdown period, institutions and individuals have appropriated rousing ascendancy sketching strength from their faith in the divine and passion for humanity with a tangible consolation by attending to the basic needs of the worst affected. We could see thousands coming forward across the world in their own zones or proximity, from rickshaw puller to Reliance Crown, manifesting the fabric of human and divine through their generosity and social commitments. We saw human fears and suffering in their extreme, and also pathways to address them to a great extent. Reaching out to the needy in time has a unique identity and culture of religious articulated their faith in a pragmatic and altruistic way. It has attested and ratified that religions are not scanty ideology or structures. It has flesh and blood, sentiments and sacrifices, passion and compassion, and a heart and soul visible to the stark naked eyes and authentic hearts. The soul of religion is anchored in nurturing human relationships, that is, in their networking and communion, both in the flashes of grace and explosions of challenges, flouting and intersecting all impediments, stigmas, and walls of hostility. And at this time, that bend of the road is not the end of the road. Corona has brought us to the bend of the road, but we have numerous reasons and opportunities, systems in place, goodwill in place to march forward with great hope and courage. Connecting lives, building relationships, celebrating faith, stimulating energy has been our mandate together towards building a COVID-free world. Above all, COVID scenario made all of us slightly more divine and better human. I am sure our God is faithful and He will definitely bless us all. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Maria, unmute.
Thank you, Father Shaji, for your positive spiritual ideas. Participants, please note, if you have any questions for this particular topic, you can write it in the comment box. It will be answered at the end of the session. And our next amazing speaker for this evening is Ms. Lubin Lucas. Lubin has done clinical psychology from Manipal University, Manipal, and worked in Nimans, Bangalore for 3 years. She was the recipient of Young India Fellowship. Currently, Lubin is in Canada. Lubin is going to share her ideas on psychological dimensions of COVID-19. Over to Lubin.
Thank you, Maria ma'am. And thank you to the Department of Sociology and to St. Joseph's College for giving me this wonderful opportunity. My esteemed co-speakers have spoken about the sociological perspective as well as the spiritual dimensions. And I will attempt to look at the potential positive impacts of from a psychological perspective about this experience that we've been having. I use the term potential because we are still living this event, and hence conclusive evidence and research is not yet available to us. However, I think we can infer certain things from the preliminary observations that are coming across in this field. I would like to divide my presentation into 2 parts. I will talk about the current experience, which is living within this lockdown and the social distancing measures that are in place, as well as the aftermath, which is perhaps towards the end of the pandemic, the experience and what is the potential for growth that as a platform that is provided. Currently, in the absence of systematic study of psychological effect of this particular pandemic, I think we will have to rely on anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence is some can help in the process of hypothesis generation and to be able to test certain theories. In my search for this anecdotal evidence, it was a little difficult to be able to collate everything. So I tried to find through interviews with certain people whether I could put down a few observations regarding how this lived experience has been for them. I will have to add a clause or a caveat to my presentation today, because when I speak about the current experience or the lived experience of COVID, I will be excluding families who've had existing mental illness, which has been exacerbated by this process, as well as financially unstable families, because they are probably going to have qualitatively different answers to these questions. Excluding these two aspects of it, I will be trying to present a certain amount of information. So, like I said, the curiosity to find out a little more about this was what drove me to conduct this small study. The details of the study were as follows. It was conducted in 2 cities, Bengaluru and in Toronto. 12 participants responded to the study. The age group of the participants were between 30 and 58 years. Women responded and 8 men. And it was an email schedule. The schedule was emailed to the participants. It was an unstructured format that was followed because in trying to understand more about the current experience, I did not want to really restrict a lot of responses that could come forth. So 5 broad areas were touched upon through 11 questions. The main domains I try to look or to tap on were work-related changes as a result of COVID, consequences of increased time spent with family members, health and mental health impact, support systems and relationships with peers, and the role of technology during this crisis. I had forgotten to previously mention that one of the most interesting things for me as a psychologist process was that perhaps in this century, this has been the time in which the most number of people have looked towards stayed indoors in order to stay alive. So I think while the individual and impact is definitely interesting and essential to study, also the impact on a family as a system was something that I found would be interesting to chart over this experience. So while looking through the observations that came across, I was able to group them according to certain predominant overlying themes. So one set of responses could be grouped as follows. Gains in time were available to the family. The family gained in terms of the time that they could spend. There were new family rituals that were formed. Couples very frequently reported the emergence of something like a movie date night that was previously not there. There were improvements that were seen in the quality of relationships. Women, of the people who've responded, said that a sharing of chores, household tasks became the norm. That is, including the children helping out as well as the elders in the house helping out. There was greater appreciation that was certain people because what COVID has done essentially is force people to engage through email, by leaving an electronic trail, and this has helped managers share their employees better. So they were able to see the kind of work schedules, etc., the pile up that was available, which paper trails don't necessarily show office as per what I was able to get from these people. There was also indication for what it takes to run a household, which I think came a lot more from the men than it did from the women. Being at home full time, some of the husbands were able to feel that it took a lot more previously thought of. In general, there was an improvement in hygiene in the family, adopting technology for online purchases, etc., which was and improved health in terms of people were very aware that they had to get themselves physically fit during this time, so as to prevent a kind of uh, a weight gain, etc. And also, in terms of two of the respondents were able to say that during this period they were able to conceive, which had been very difficult for them to do so before, considering that they had a PCOD diagnosis, which is polycystic ovarian disorder. So I was able to kind of look at this and classify these as a set of benefits to the individual as well as family that was gained during this time. The second set of responses were in terms of what they did that helped them during this crisis. So family prayer was pretty important. People also resorted to live streaming of mass, which had previously not even seemed to be an option. Music in different forms, in terms of uh, listening to music, in terms of actively engaging with an instrument, making videos, gardening. People who didn't have plots of land began to take up terrace gardening. People who had already been doing it before managed to find an increased sense of satisfaction during this time. The use of online fitness apps. Again, this was something that the COVID experience kind of made happen, because previously it was just looked as a walk in the park would be enough, etc. But when that was denied, online apps became an important source of fitness. Indoor games were played within the family, something that had previously not been very popular. Uh, some people resorted to baking as a stress buster. And one family specifically told me that they had taken this opportunity as a time to remodel their house. Um, so, grouping this, I would put it under something like an adaptive coping uh, that resulted out of COVID. The third and final set of responses I found were not directly related to the questions asked, as opposed to the other two. But what emerged was that COVID inadvertently came across as the time which allowed for things that previously could never occur or had not occurred to these individuals. It became a point at which a time during which they could prove self-reliance. There was even a sense of pride that we were able to manage without a maid for the last 3 months. Um, sense of learning during this time, whether it be in terms of your work or just in terms of dealing with day-to-day tasks. It provided the time that was previously unavailable for people to reconnect with old friends, perhaps from school and college days. Also, those old friends were now able to were available to people, in the sense they had time that they previously did not. So the possibility of connection was a lot easier. It was also a time that suddenly there were new talents that were being uncovered within the family, whether it's in terms of music or skills in the kitchen, etc. And saw it as an opportunity to reach out to the less fortunate. One particular respondent was a teacher who said that this gave him the incentive to set up a website for his students so that they could continue to, which was not generally a part of his typical academic model. So innovation was something that came out of. Again, a lot of families were able to sit and look back at these old videos and photographs that they had. So reminiscing became something that was done. And young mothers, two respondents had this answer. Um, the onus of education, as we all know right now, has come back to the parents within a family, considering that they are at home with their children. And two mothers were able to say that because something called school time with their 2-year-olds and their 3-year-olds, they found that their children were able to pick up certain skills perhaps at a quicker rate than if they had just relied on the school system alone. So in that sense, COVID was, I mean, this lockdown period, etc., was viewed as an opportunity which had come their way. So in essence, from this small study, I suppose we could say that ecological positive effects to the family as a whole, which gives also rise to adaptive coping, as well as an opportunity for the individual as well as the family to engage in certain things that were previously not possible. So this brings me to the end of the experience of COVID as per the current experience with the lockdown, etc. In the aftermath, what is it that we can expect or what can happen? Nietzsche said it best when he said, that which does not kill us.
Even a little louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So Nietzsche said it best when he said, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. So I'd like to bring your attention to this word kintsugi, which is a Japanese art form. Artisans basically use molten gold to be able to put back together certain pieces of pottery. And by doing so, they make it not only more beautiful, perhaps, than it was before, but also more valuable. So, in that sense, kintsugi is a metaphor for something that is termed post-growth, which is a field, which is a division which is studied in the field of psychology from formally from the 1990s. So, before we begin to talk about post-traumatic growth, I think it's worthwhile to see what is a traumatic experience. A traumatic experience is essentially one that challenges an individual, an individual's sense of safety, or it could be his identity. It could be expectations that he has about the future, or assumptions. I think if we look at the COVID experience, one or more of this has been challenged on a pretty vast level for most of the assumptions about the world could be things that the world is benevolent, it is good, it is predictable, it is changing, and it can be controlled. So an event such as COVID can be something that all of these assumptions, it can definitely come as a sense of harm for the individual and their physical well-being, and perhaps about what the future holds. What we had been very comfortable with in the past is no longer something that holds true for us. So looking at this, what is post-traumatic growth? Post-traumatic growth is something that it is a new term, but it is a pretty old concept. Most of the religions, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, I think they all talk about a transformative aspect of suffering, which is essentially what is post-traumatic growth, even though it was formally defined only in the 1990s. So it is perhaps when a series of challenging experiences or one particular challenging forces an individual to step out of existing patterns of behavior to embrace something that is both beneficial to him as well as different. So, of course, it was coined in the 90s by two psychologists, Tedeschi and Calhoun. The experience of positive change that occurs as a result of the struggle with highly challenging life crisis. The emphasis here is on the individual's struggle and the individual's ability to engage and navigate this experience rather than the trauma itself. So I think what we can take from this is that, yes, we have experienced COVID, perhaps some of us more acutely than others. But for us to be able to achieve this or to have significant, meaningful change, it requires a certain sense of engaging with the problems at hand, trying to be able to see if there is something that we can derive meaning out of and improve in our lives. So what post-traumatic growth as a concept also does is it takes away the old notion that suffering, trauma can only lead to negative effects. And it also gives us the opportunity to look at a potentially difficult experience in a positive manner. So the chart explains it pretty well. There is stress and trauma, which is people use certain coping strategies. These coping strategies can either leave the person in the state of homeostasis, which is nothing has changed. They are still going about their lives like they used to. Or it can be transformational in that the coping strategies force the person to change in some way. Um, those changes can create a lot of stress, and if the person is unable to perhaps withstand that, it becomes a negative result. But if they can look at it and react and cope with it in a positive manner, it can result in the concept of post-traumatic growth. So post-traumatic growth has been studied in events such as bereavement, that is losing someone, a health crisis, accidents, illness of a child, refugee experiences, being taken hostage, sexual abuse, house fires, and pandemics more recently. So when understanding post-traumatic growth, just to break it down to see what are the kinds of changes that can result out of this kind of an experience. Looking at it from the left bottom corner, there is appreciation for life. A greater appreciation of life, understanding what is more important, where to invest your energies. That is one of the potential results. Looking at life in a new way, having the courage to follow a new path, opening up your perspectives to opening up your I mean the possibilities of your life to a different set of perspectives. Spiritual changes, spirituality both in the sense of organized religion as well as engaging a lot more on existential aspects of why am I here, what is the purpose of my life, how can I improve the state of the world as it is today in whatever small way I can. The next one is a personal strength, realizing having a lot more confidence in the fact that you have resources of personal strength and that you can be able to deal with crisis in the future. And of course, the last thing is relating to others. This is in terms of um, keeping priorities with regards to family and friends on a higher scale than it was before. Also valuing closer and perhaps more intimate and relationships than the superficial ones from the past. Just as a matter of information, it can be studied using something called the post-traumatic growth inventory. Research has also showed us that there are personal qualities that make post-traumatic more likely to occur. Extroversion, openness to experience, and optimism. The first two are the most backed in terms of research evidence, extroversion and openness to experience. Perhaps it is because when you go through something that is traumatic, if you are able to talk to people and gain a different perspective and connect the dots in back into your own life, it will make the process of deriving meaning and to shift gear a lot more easier than it would have if you were someone who found it difficult to confide, difficult to express, etc. Optimism is also good, but it is not as supported in evidence as the first two. In all this, I think it is important to note that for post-traumatic growth to occur, um, the most important thing would be the experience of that event as being traumatic. So that makes it essentially different from it being um, just something that is challenging to something that shakes you perhaps to the core values that you have. So coming back to COVID and discussing COVID as a disaster, as an event that has caused trauma and growth, what can we say? Is COVID-19 a disaster? Whether it is natural or man-made, perhaps would be left to a different discussion, but the answer is yes. Has the experience been traumatic to some or many segments of the population? I think if we look at our nurses and we look at our doctors and we look at our migrant workers and we look at our essential workers, we look at families who are in need of financial stability, the answer would definitely be yes. And could there therefore be an opportunity, but not a guarantee for growth? And again, the answer would be yes. So what does history tell us in terms of understanding the potential for growth along with a pandemic crisis? So from the SARS epidemic of 2003, there was research that was generated by Lau et al. in 2006. They tracked the experience during the outbreak in March, which was the early part of the epidemic, and finally what the outcomes were like in June. During the pandemic, during the epidemic, what was worry, helplessness, isolation, irritation, sleeping problems, and a few other negative mental health effects were experienced by the population at large. I think it's important to note that this is not essentially only by the people who were affected by SARS. It was the concept of, I mean, it was the experience of living during the time of an epidemic. So the people that were interviewed in this study were random telephone numbers that were picked up just to understand what the experience of the last month had been. The same people were then tracked over a course of 2 to 3 months, and they spoke about now being at that point being a little changed because of their experience in the social, in the personal, as well as in the spiritual domains. In the social domains, there was this closeness to family, this valuing of intimate relations. Personal growth, there was a slowdown in general, a tendency to understand the importance of relaxing, the importance of making a priority list and not chasing things at random. And spiritual growth, again, in terms of realizing the importance of being kind to each other, and of looking forward to understanding more about the meaning of their own lives. And I think the next one that was interesting for me was the Ebola virus outbreak of 2014-2016. This again was it was not done by on the people who themselves had the Ebola virus. It was done on international humanitarian aid workers. During the process, I mean, during the experience of the outbreak, there was a lot of re-experiencing of hyperarousal, of reactivity to situations. So these are all symptoms of what in the field of mental health we term as post-traumatic stress symptoms, which is as a result of experiencing the trauma, you have a slew of negative psychological events that take place. And also they reported having negative thoughts and feelings about the potential of the future. As a result of a couple of weeks and months, a couple of months and 2 years, they were able to find that relating to others had improved. Spiritual growth was seen. There was a greater sense of purpose among these people, appreciation of life, a greater understanding of their personal strength, and the potential for new possibilities, and seeing the world as something that is brimming with promise. So both these pandemic studies, or these epidemic studies, show us that there is hope. There is hope for people who have experienced the most difficult kind this time. And it might not happen for everyone. It really depends on an individual. But even the concept that it is there, I think, is hold on to as a positive impact of this COVID experience. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that COVID-19, as in this picture, is definitely a dark cloud. But every cloud has a silver lining, as the cliche goes. And so whether it is in terms of our individual life within a family, we have seen in that study that there definitely been some positive aspects to it, or as a society, or as people engaging on the whole in the process of this pandemic, there are some things that can definitely be seen as positive that have been derived from this experience. So with that, I think I will conclude my presentation, and thank you for listening.
For your valuable inputs. Over to Hanup sir for concluding remarks.
Sir, you're on mute, sir.
Am I?
Yes, now you're audible.
Yes. Dear participants, academicians and students, thank you very much for participating in the first ever international webinar of the Department of Sociology, St. Joseph's College, Bengaluru. Our esteemed speakers, sociologist Dr. Rajesh Rajashekar has given us inputs highlighting various positive effects during this pandemic, be it opportunity to rest, seeing the positive side of detachment, strengthening of family ties, redoubling the ever important role played by women in every family. Dear Dr. Father Shaji Mandapati Kunil, who was my junior in college, esteemed alumni of our college, thank you for helping us understand various positive effects as far as religion and spirituality is concerned during these trying times. Be it making a person more charitable, more humble, more spiritual, and enabling us with more self-awareness. The young clinical psychologist from Canada, Mrs. Lubin Locus, thank you. With such a short notice, you also managed to conduct a small survey with respondents from Bengaluru and faraway Toronto. Thank you for making us understand its dimensions, positive sides as far as psychology is concerned during this pandemic, and for taking us through the journey of various other pandemics, positive sites based on your observations and research. In my capacity as Dean Social Sciences, St. Joseph's College, I would like to thank the head of the Department of Sociology, the senior most faculty, Dr. Verin Locus, for organizing this international dinner with my colleague, Mrs. Maria De, team led by Neeraj Savio, support given by Mr. Davford from St. Joseph's Evening College. We have had a record number of 600 plus participants from about 9 who arrived for this webinar. Thank you once again. Thank you, dear Dr. Shaji Lucas, for being our to the open house question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I audible right now?
You are audible.
Yeah. So due to time constraints, we shall only be asking each speaker one question each. So the first question is to Dr. Rajashekar. There's been a question that asks that there are a lot of reports stating that during the lockdown caused by this pandemic, it has reinforced gender roles and more women now fall prey to abuse and battering. Could you shed some light on the situation and what
Neeraj,
can do to
I
improve
have read all the queries here also. Let me respond to those things. First thing that we should stop telling ourselves and others, let the government do something. Who is the government? It is the representatives of our own. They represent and again they make the policies. You start a new norm, obviously it becomes a policy over a period of time. You don't have to tell that it should become a law and then we should be following that law. A norm where we follow, it becomes a law, unsaid. Family doesn't matter in terms of what kind of new norm that you bring in, it becomes your own practice. And again, you need not be told by anybody that how you should be running your own family. So the best way to think is in terms of how everybody is doing it. Have a smile in your family, that itself says that your family is good. Point of gender roles and again wife battering or any other things. This is not an effect of COVID-19. This is a bad practice among some families or probably some perverted individuals, where they think it is the right to beat and they can do something like that. And it is now the responsibility of the family not to hide such kind of actions, but to expose such kind of a man or woman, whoever is beating, to the whole society, and then see that the society takes care of all those things. Why suffer? And I can say that the law should be enforced. Many laws which cannot be enforced within the four walls. So you need to expose such a character and then try to see that you have some sort of safety within yourself. And don't try to hide some sort of bad practices within the family. Let the family members take the role of all those things, not the police to come and again control your family. Police role can still be followed by or can be played by the elders in the family, neighbors, or around your own vicinity. So let these things take place. Other issues in terms of why can't we have a lockdown once in a month or probably once in. See, every religion has told us to restrain ourselves in terms of eating or doing something, and again practicing some sort of abstinence. Let it be your practice. Let there not be any law being enforced from the government side. If you have your own policy to keep yourself, Maunarata, nothing like it, or fasting for one day in a week or once in a month, nothing like it. There are many things like this which we can. So try to see that you bring a new practice. Try to see that you come out with new norms, or probably follow the norms which are the good families around you are doing it. That itself is sufficient. I'll stop with that. So your action, not the government action.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for those enlightening words. The second question is to Father Shaji. The second question is to Father Shaji. A user has asked a question: what positive impact can COVID have on religion when the so-called representative of divinity has disappeared from action? Should I repeat the question, sir?
I got it. It all depends upon how will you define divinity and humanity. As far as I know, or what I have learned, is the highest human values or human characters are valued by everyone, irrespective of caste, creed, are valued and considered as divine values. I said at the beginning, both there is no ultimate divine values without human values, or human values without divine values. Therefore, both are mutually complementing and inexhaustible. I don't see actually a divine values getting vanished anywhere. Love is a profound value. Those who believe in God will attribute something to that with the divinity. Those who do not believe will cherish and enjoy in the scenario of relationship. Therefore, we cannot tangibly portray this is divinity, this is humanity. The highest human values are the highest divine values. That's the way I perceive this concept, or this reality, this element of fundamental element of human life. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Shaji. That was certainly very enlightening. Now I shall come to the last question to Ms. Lubin Lucas. One of the participants has asked the question: in this crisis that we are facing right now, it has impacted our lives at large. Mental unrest, stress, and anxiety are commonplace. So how do we exactly take care of a mental being? Some short tips, if you could provide so.
Of course. Thank you for the question. I think it's very relevant. Just off the top of my head, I can think of a few things that can happen. I think one is in terms of restricting. It's a very important mental health. It's restricting the amount of time that is spent on the news. It is something that has been talked about by a lot of people. The amount of information to perhaps half an hour on a daily basis, so you're not bombarded by the negative aspects of this crime, but knowing enough that will help you to kind of lead a healthy life. I think exercise is important. from the point of view of both keeping yourself fit as well as the physiological change that is brought about, which then affects a lot of mental change. So engaging in something around the house, whether it's in terms of a Zumba workout or in terms of just perhaps 10 push-ups a day if you can, right? Or finding a new hobby, something that would perhaps keep your mind occupied, something that you've always wanted to do, keep yourself engaged in a new manner. Essentially reaching out perhaps to people that, like one of the observations that you've always wanted to, but you've not been able to because of time constraints, etc. People from happier days when you're college or in school. Then there is this concept of using this time for meditation and for mindfulness exercises. I think these can go a long way because it teaches you to disengage from the current moment and to just observe impartially. So it decreases your the emotional arousal or the anxiety and the fear that comes across because you're living through this kind of an environment. So yeah, that's, I think, would be also if you have a tendency towards pets at home, I think they're a great stress buster. Yeah, so hobbies, exercises, meditation, keeping yourself fit, also decreasing the amount of news coverage that you kind of give yourself on a daily basis. There was just one thing, however, that I wanted to add apart from this question that was asked to me. Two things on substance abuse. Definitely, it has increased across the spectrum, and I did not touch on that because this is a positive impact webinar. And in my study, the socioeconomic background was not varied, which is why I mentioned that the financial instability aspect is one of the caveats to the presentation. So definitely, that could be one of the biases that come across in understanding this positive impact of COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So now, end of the webinar. I hope everyone was able to have a very enlightening and enriching session.